and suddenly we don't say anything at all.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
here.
yeah.
Hey, folks, come on in. Come on in, folks. We know you're out there.
We're gonna try to talk about comics this
It's
time.
Sunday morning. We're going to try to talk about comics. Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
No promises. No, I will. I'll keep it totally comic focused.
Right.
I have I'm gonna put a sign here on the wall. Comics.
Yeah, comics.
The
Yeah.
entire conversation seems to wander, Varian, whenever you're here.
It's not me. It's not me. I wasn't here last weekend.
Oh, that's
I
true.
seen that
Yeah.
show. I seen that show.
we were a hot mess all on our own.
Yeah.
Going all over the place. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Sunday Funnies for the 21st of February, 2021. So we appreciate you coming in. Come on in. The chat room is open. We see you out there. We know you're looking. Glenn's here. So I'll
Hey,
give it
Glenn.
5 minutes. Glenn, I'll send you a link. You can come in and talk comics too.
I need to come visit Russ or Glenn. I just need what
Road
I really
trip.
need. Well, yeah, what I need is a sofa for about a week.
I have one.
Okay, yeah, I need somebody. I found my sister wife, and I need to come. She's there. I found her. I found her YouTube, and I'm like,
It's a great discussion about comics, folks.
it is.
Already,
No,
we're starting off with a bang.
And it's not Varian's fault that the topic
Glenn
wanders all over the
said, I'll give it 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it lasted all of 5 seconds.
You won.
No, but she's in the comics and video games, so
You
that's
won,
why
Glenn.
I'm
You
like,
won.
I
Mhm.
got to get over there. I got to get over there.
Of course.
She's single, so that shouldn't be happening. I'll get over there.
From the desk of a small press publisher. Wow. What that was a wake-up call. I think I'm aware after last night's show. Joe D. McPhee had a big show last night.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
big show.
Having
Big
problems with a conventioneer.
Uh-oh.
Then
So I'm in need of a comic discussion. Yes, sir, Joe.
We'll try. We'll
As
try.
are we all. Welcome everybody to Sunday Funnies. Like I said, we're going to run the
Uh-huh.
opening, introduce ourselves, and we're going to start talking comics as Russ is drawing comics. We'll be talking.
Yeah, exactly. Uh-huh.
All right, here we go. Hang on, everybody. Here's the opening.
Daphne, do we have something we want to add to this?
Anyway. Hey, everybody, come on in. My name's Randy Zimmerman. I'm your host. I'm a longtime independent and alternative comics producer, publisher, artist, writer, letterer. Done just about everything you can imagine in the direct market for many, many years. Been doing this for a few decades. And we welcome you to Sunday Funnies. And we're going to bring Glenn in here also. Hello, Glenn. How you doing?
Hello.
Hi.
We're just introducing ourselves, so you're just on time. So, also with me today is co-host Varian Grant and Daphne Lage, and good friends and special guest Glenn B. Fleming and Mr. Russ Leach. So, Varian, introduce yourself.
hello, everybody out there. My name is Varian Grant. I'm the founder of IndieVolt Media LLC, as well as co-publisher, co-owner of LastCallComics.com, founder and owner of Liberty Entertainment Distribution Group, one of the Terraform founding 5, and I've been making comics since 2008. I got, I started when there was no crowdfunding, which makes me 10 times better than you. Yeah,
I started before the direct market. So,
yeah. So I of course I joke about that last part, but yeah, been making comics since 2008, and I'm happy to be here this morning. Got to have my eyes open. It's a nice sunny day here. It's 8 degrees. Let's go.
Oh,
wonderful. 8 degrees.
gross.
I think it's like 5 here around the Flint area.
Oh, At least I'm somewhat creeping around the double digits.
Yeah, but you've
I
had
think there
to
might
dig
be a
out.
2. I think there might be a 2 in it in somewhere.
Yeah.
You also had to dig out a double-digit snow, though.
Yeah. Luckily, yeah, we're supposed to get more. It's like I'm up to here. Really. But in the meantime, hello everybody. My name is Daphne Leitch, and I am a cartoonist, illustrator, and comic book artist from New York. I have been self-publishing comics since 1992, before Variant even existed. So that makes me better than him. And I am known for my funny animal fantasy comic, Tall Tales, right here, my beautiful baby, and also my new medieval drama, Eagle Raven, Heir of the First Unicorn. Come gaze at my second born, which is now shipping. I put the first batch from my Kickstarter in the post office yesterday, so watch out for that. And thank you everybody for a very successful Kickstarter for that. So you can read both my comics online at talltalesonline.com, TAILS, and egoworks.com, EGOWORKS. And you can watch me make both of these comics through my videos on my channel on YouTube at Daphne Lage, Lage Art.
Well, speaking of printed children, we're also joined by Glenn B. Fleming. Glenn, introduce yourself.
Hi everybody, my name is Glenn Fleming. I'm an English graphic designer, artist, writer and publisher. I've written and published books on many different subjects, including JFK assassination, a couple of science fiction novels, a couple of children's books that I've written and illustrated, a book about World Cup football, soccer to you guys. I also published a book called 8 Seconds, which was about my dad's experiences on D-Day as a paratrooper. And lots of other things, and I won't go on because this list is amazing that I've written here. I can't believe it. I published a 120-page book about Jack Kirby a couple of years ago, which featured articles written by many people and included my meetings with him. And I also put out a DVD about my meetings with him a couple of years ago, and I'm revisiting that and updating it, and that'll be ready soon. Everything I do is just about available on Amazon, so if you put my name in there, it'll all come up and you'll be as astounded as I am.
That's Glenn with 2 N's and Fleming with 1 M.
Yeah.
Yes.
With a B in the middle if you want to.
B in the middle. Yep.
Yeah.
And in his spare time, ladies and gentlemen, he knits.
He climbs mountains and stuff.
I just want to say that I had my first comic out when I was 9, so that beats a lot of you.
There you go.
Which is many years ago.
All hail the king.
I currently publish Comics Unlimited, which is a 100-page bi-monthly magazine about comics. So lots of things.
And we're here to talk comics today.
And we're talking comics, and it took Varian 1 minute 35 seconds to talk about something else.
Oh yeah.
So I was right.
Varian in his quest for sister wives.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. We're also joined today by Russ Leach. Russ, introduce yourself.
Hi. Which makes Glenn better than all of us, doesn't it?
Not really.
So I feel kind of small now. One thing I have got a claim to fame is that I really am a black belt, and I could break every one of your necks.
You might move your microphone just a little closer to you.
Oh yeah. Okay. There you go. That's a bit deeper.
Yeah, you sound like you're in a big room.
Well, it's big compared to my book. Okay. My name's Russ Leach. I am the Comic Book Black Belt. That's me on YouTube. You can go to YouTube and find me as Comic Book Black Belt, and you'll find out about on the channel about how I produce comics and my artistic procedures. And that's because I've been drawing comics now in anger for about 11 years. I've been in and around comics art and production for quite some time. In fact, more years than I'd care to remember. And I had a different life. And then when I changed that life and was reborn into the comic strip artist that I am now, I've been doing all kinds of things, illustration and storyboarding. I got a shot at Doctor Who. I got a shot on some Marvel work, and I got a shot on some stuff for Cartoon Network. And then I fell into obscurity and instead decided to do the best thing, which is to make your own books. And you can see that all around the panel that I have with me today. They know what they're doing. So make your own books, make your own entertainment. You can find out more about me at russleach.com, at comicbookblackbelt.com, and at onlydeathcansavus.com. The book is available in demand. Go check it out. There is a link there to the Indiegogo campaign, and you can find out more about that book. And there will be more of Dee and Chrissy, the protagonists from this book, coming in the next multiple years. I assure you, they're not going away. This is not a one-off. This is one of many, and there will be many places you will be able to see it.
Awesome. Going back to the chat, Marv is in the house. Marv says hello. Good morning.
Yeah.
Morning, Marv. Marv's from Portugal. Hey. Marv says the rain is gone, unfortunately. Well, Marv, anytime you want some snow, you can come over here.
Yeah, you can have ours.
It's because that's the last time it's going to rain in Portugal this year.
Well, I mean, knowing that region, they're going to end up with a heat wave coming soon, so it's going to be their turn for something else.
We've had more rain than I've seen ever in my entire life, and we'll probably have a hosepipe ban by the time April turns up.
Yeah, easy.
Yeah.
It is 9 degrees today, though, so it's quite nice. Yeah,
it's balmy. It is balmy. I've had the windows open. It's been that nice.
Oh, that's like talking to my mom. She's in Florida, and she goes, "Oh, it's so hot here." I'm like, stop it. What's you?
Mom. But you're talking 9 Celsius too, not 9 Fahrenheit. 9 Celsius is about what the high 20s, low 30s. Here when you convert that to Fahrenheit.
Oh God, that sounds so much better.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we're here to talk about comics.
Yeah. Not the metric system.
Not the
Well, until you have to convert those comics over to the metric system, then you're like, oh man, and you're printing elsewhere.
It's like millimeters. What the hell is millimeters?
Yeah.
Well, since we left Europe, I want to know whether we're going to get our pounds, shillings, and pence back.
I want a guinea, good sir. That's what I want.
Guineas. You know, Frank.
I want a Guinness. That's what
Speaking of guineas, Russ. You know Frank Bellamy. You've heard of Frank Bellamy, of course.
Yeah.
He, in the 60s, when he was doing that Thunderbirds artwork, and Mike Noble and those people were doing Captain Scarlet and things like that, and TV21. They used to get. I think Frank Bellamy got 3 guineas per spread.
Good Lord!
Right, and you've seen those double spreads.
Haven't gone up, have they?
Well, yeah.
But what is that? What does that like convert to? Kind of
four chickens and half a sheep.
Standard rates then.
A guinea is a pound and a shilling, isn't it, Ross?
I thought that was a pig.
I'm sorry.
3 pigs and what in a blanket?
That's the best thing to bet on. When you go to the races and you have your top hat and your cravat on, you should bet in guineas, good sir. That's the way it works.
If you remember, back in 65, 66, the average wage in England was of what you might call a working man was probably about 10 quid, 10 pounds, right?
Yeah.
Books.
And he got... Frank Bellamy got 3 guineas a spread, and he would do 1 a day.
Oh, so he was doing all right.
What?
Maybe 2 days. Blank paper to finished art in 2 days. Full color.
That is the work of a madman.
As well as doing other things as well.
We hear stories about Frank Frazetta who painted, did entire iconic paintings in less than a day.
Yeah.
But
not for nothing, he did noodle on them for the next 40 years.
That's very true.
What happened? What happened with Frazetta's son? Didn't he try and steal all that stuff and get in trouble or something? Or somebody after he died?
There was like some crazy drama where they tried to break. Yeah, but as far as I know, it's like everything's kind of like back to normal, and they're running the museum normally.
The thing with these great artists, and this is in no way to belittle what they do at all. It's an example of their greatness. Yeah. Is that they keep doing what they do. Yeah. They get so good at it that so many things become shortcuts.
Yeah.
And it's not shortcuts for the rest of us, but you look at it and you think, wow, this isn't. But of course, they're just stroking this stuff out. I mean, what you need to do is look at the way You know, Buscema and before him Kirby and the other guys, and
Right.
how many pages they were throwing
Yeah.
out a day.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because they weren't great. It was because they had a shortcut. And the
Shorthand,
shortcut was dead. It was created by
Yeah.
a constant use of their talents.
It's not just
and
that.
to do that,
It's not just that, but they were also paid by the page. So it
Yeah.
was the output that was more important than the artistic effort.
Yeah. But even
I
with
remember
people like
hating-
Frazetta and his paintings,
Yeah.
because he kept doing it and doing it, it was, you know, he was able to recreate the same kind of level of artistry on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember growing up not liking Herb Trimpe at all,
Yeah.
especially on his run on Hulk. And
Yeah.
then I pick up an issue of Strange Adventures where he did this World War I flying strip with biplanes and everything. And it stunned me. I was like, who in the world did this? This is amazing. And I went and looked at the credits and Herb Trimpe, and I went, holy crap. Obviously, you know, there were two different sets of skill sets that Herb had. One was incredibly artistic and one was deadline driven, where he could deliver a dynamic Marvel page really quick in order to get that page rate. But when it came to doing something he wanted to do, boom, here, look at this. And it's like,
you could apply that to an article like Sid Shaw's. I wrote an article about Sid Shaw's for my Golden Age special last year. And so I had to look into it. And my main experience of Sid Shaw's was inking Kirby's Captain America. And even as when I bought it when I was about 15 or so, I didn't, there was something wrong, too scratchy for Kirby.
Mm-hmm.
A bit more like Coletta rather than Royer or Sinnott, and a bit too scratchy. But when I was researching and looking at the artwork that Sid Shaw's produced, like you say, when he was doing like his own stuff, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
His women are absolutely gorgeous. And same with Vince Coletta, his work is the same. If you see his work, you think, wow,
his early romance work is completely different from his style later.
And you think with Coletta, you think, how did this guy get the chance to mess up Kirby work so much? You know, but that's another story. But his actual drawing is absolutely beautiful.
Sorry.
No, because me and JD we would have a discussion about how many artists did we kind of miss out on because they were working on stuff that really wasn't like in their not their wheelhouse, but like it was obvious that it wasn't really their thing. You know, like we have like certain artists pretty much being forced to draw superheroes when, you know, that's not their thing, but because that's just happens to be the industry, that's where they make money. You know, and then we don't find out later that it's like, oh, they're actually good. Yeah. Because we don't see what they're really doing until like later or even by accident.
I remember seeing a long time ago a Western, I'm not sure whether it was a Dell comic or DC or whoever it was, I don't know. And it was drawn by Mort Drucker. Yeah. And it was just stylized Western, Kirby, Kid Colt, that kind of style, John Severin, that kind of style, which is fantastic. Yeah. But obviously later, Mort Drucker went into Mad, and look at those caricatures. He's the best ever. There's nobody better than him. And there's people like Jack Davis in that office, so to speak. And Jack Davis was pretty good, you know?
Pretty good.
He wasn't too shabby.
So what I'm saying is I'm really pleased, really, really grateful that Mort Drucker decided to do caricatures and not Westerns. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, because
I think something else we miss out on, especially now, is the combination of inkers and pencilers. Yeah. Some inkers and pencilers just don't work together. Yeah. Whereas some others absolutely create each other. Yeah. If you look at Sinnott's inks, for instance, or Palmer's inks over Buscema, especially when he was leveling down the amount of detail he was throwing out because of the reduction of pages. And you can just see how good the artistry was of the inkers. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to be able to work with an inker of that you know quality, and be able to do it on a regular basis of getting a combination work out. But nowadays it seems a lot of inkers are looking to either they're restricted or they're just looking to and it's not tracing, but it comes close. Yeah. Okay. And I'm a big fan of inkers. Big fan. I think it's a skill and its ability that people put down on a regular basis and they don't see what it really is. But if those inkers aren't allowed to ink, if they don't get given that opportunity to flourish and embellish, as they used to use the word embellishment, embellish over the top of those pencils, because the pencils are so ultra tight. Now I can understand it from the penciler's perspective as well, because I'm a bit anal like that, and I want really tight pencils, and so I end up inking my own work. Okay, but I would dearly love to be able to do on a regular basis, throw down pencils and get an inker who I could trust to just do their thing and bring their part of the process, and so that I could enjoy the combination of the two. That would be a lovely thing to do. But I fear that that's not something that's very easy to find these days, for lots of different reasons, including numbers of publications, how often publications get put out, and all that kind of stuff, as well as the interaction of the two artists.
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
No, because you would think that would be easier, because before you had to worry about original artwork. That it's they're once they're on the pencils, that's it. Those pencils are gone. But now it's all digital. You would think it would be easier to find inkers to experiment with.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
I could never work out how Frank Giacoia worked on Gene Colan's Daredevil. Giacoia is a good inker, and Gene Colan's a great artist, but to me that never worked. But I think they did about 50 issues together.
Well, somebody must have liked it.
So yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm just saying that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I didn't like.
Or they just met deadlines. Well. Probably they were good at meeting deadlines or something.
Got it done. Got it done. Yeah, well, and there were so many books that people didn't see, not the quality, but there was a certain amount of, let's get it out the door. We're going to make money out of this. It's pulp,
Yeah. Well, from what I understand, Gene Colan was incredibly hard to ink anyway, because he dealt in a lot of shading, a lot of cinematic technique that a lot of inkers had to convert to black and white. Yeah. So I think that's why they grafted Tom Palmer to his side.
I was going to say the best inker I've seen on Gene Colan is Tom Palmer, because he has a looser style, and Gene Colan's more of an illustrator than a comic book artist to me. The same with Neil Adams. I always see Neil Adams's work as he's more of a advertising illustrator than a comic. Yeah. Not that he's bad or anything, but his style. Kirby is just a pure comic book artist, even though some of his pencil work on that wasn't for comics is very good. Yeah. But he's a comic book artist. That's the way.
Yeah, Mike Grell kind of gives me that same advertising vibe too.
Yeah. But very, very nice. But to me, it's sort of out of place a bit. Yeah, but it's still very good.
Yeah. What's funny is that it's because there's this thinking that everything is interchangeable, and you should be able to combine everything, as opposed to matching up certain inkers and artists, and I kind of wonder how much the audience really notices that, or is it just nerds like us? Because I remember a story, I forgot which convention it was Peter David and Sergio Aragonés, and they did a panel where it's we're making the world's fastest comic book. Right. And they had all of these whiteboards lined up, and Peter David made up a story at that moment, and Sergio Aragonés would be drawing the story as Peter David was dictating it. And I think the entire process, the entire whiteboards were covered in about 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And there was somebody in the audience going, well, if it took you 45 minutes to make a comic, then how come we don't get comics like multiple times a week then? And it's and then Sergio Aragonés and Peter David were pointing at the whiteboard, and it's do you see what this thing looks like? It was more they just, as long as they got their hit, it didn't matter what the comic looked like. So I'm kind of wondering who's actually noticing all this stuff that
they don't understand the process, do they?
Yeah. I mean, they're literally watching it happen, and they're going, oh, we should be able to get a comic book every 45 minutes according to this.
Yeah. I remember at school, people were amazed that I knew the names of the artists, and I could even, I'm presuming all five of us here can name an artist and the inker.
Right. Yeah.
And but most people don't care, do they? They're not bothered. They don't see. They don't look at. We're all creative people. They don't see that. They don't see that process. They don't understand. You know?
Right.
I
I mean,
why should they really? I mean,
right. I mean,
know?
did you see that newspaper article about like there was a poll done about like what's considered the most important and the most useless careers, and the number one most useless career according to this poll was artist.
Yeah, that's why everybody wants the Mona Lisa on the wall, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
You know?
it's it depends how you quantify useless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think bankers are useless, but they're not according to the system because they're there to make money, and that's the way capitalism works. It's all about money markets, but actually they're far, far more useless than a communicator, a conveyor of ideas and concepts, let alone a nurse or a fireman or a teacher or somebody that might clean the roads.
Right.
So it's all about how you quantify what's useless, and presumably that article.
I mean, it's like if you really think about it, it's like how did we start off as a species? Hunters, gatherers, artists. You know, like we were third in line. Someone was drawing on those cave walls.
Where were the bankers? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Evolution has gone terribly, terribly wrong when you see the kind of people who sit in Parliament, all right, and who are more likely to spread their DNA than I am, simply because of the amount of money they've got. Okay, it used to be the case. All you needed to do was run faster than the next guy when the lion was after you, and that was evolution. Okay.
Well, with the artists, though, it was the hunters and gatherers who, after they had hunted and gathered, had to boast to their family about how big the beast was that they killed.
Right, exactly.
Well, it was this big compared to me. I was this.
Storyteller artists type.
Then took some DMT and started making comics. That was
it worked.
I'll give you
freaking out, and it's like, what are they doing?
I'll give you an example. Of evolution. I was having this conversation a few years ago with a guy I was working with, and he was sort of short and stocky, and I'm tall. And I said to him, we were talking about being hunter-gatherers, and I said, well, you wouldn't have a chance because you couldn't, if you didn't get that gazelle in the first 2 feet, he's gone. But I could chase him and catch him, maybe.
Yeah. Well, you could at least see him over the long grass.
Yeah. So this guy said, it's simple. I'd use my brain. I would wait behind the rock and hit you on the head with the rock when you caught the gazelle, and just take the gazelle home. So I'm doing all the work.
Yeah, that's about the size of it.
I think that's how ravens do it.
And ravens are incredibly intelligent.
And thus comics were born.
And thus then, right?
Yeah, but
hitting them artists over the head with a rock ever since the comics started. Yeah.
All the comics up until now, Glenn, are you hunting that gazelle. All right.
Yeah.
And comics Blast is the Raven guy
with
a rock
exactly.
On the back of the head.
Yeah.
And who's the clever one? I imagine that 100,000 years ago, when Ugg the caveman was running around, the bee's brother wouldn't go out and get that gazelle because he was drawing his hand on the wall. So he might not eat.
John Celestri says, hi, Jack Davis drew the Rawhide Kid after Kirby left the series to start Fantastic Four.
Right.
Says, as a kid, my favorite pairing in comics was Jack Kirby pencils and Dick Ayers inking.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good team.
Yeah.
Marv V says, Gene, what a great man. The first artist I was able to relate the art with the artist. No internet back then, and we only had their names in the books.
Yeah.
Lee was the only face we were able to see. Well, that's because Lee kept putting his face out there.
Yeah.
So
everybody else was busy drawing.
Yeah.
Lovely Tash.
Everybody else was chasing the gazelle, weren't they?
Yeah.
My first marvel at the first time I really started looking at Gene Colan's work was a Daredevil with Stuntmaster in it. Yeah. The cover has the Stuntmaster and his motorcycle zooming up. And I just sat there in awe of the movement. And then inside they have a fight with Daredevil ends up taking Stuntmaster's place because Stuntmaster was in some trouble. And Daredevil took his place and then decided to mop the floor up with the guys that were causing him trouble. And one of the guys remarked that his leg must have been double jointed because he does this high kick. And the way that Colan drew it, you just sat there and went, wow, that's amazing. Look at that. Just the movement and the flow, especially in all of those Daredevils, you could tell that Colan was constantly challenging himself as far as movement goes. Trying to show movement on the page was just fascinating to see.
That still amazes me to this day, that it's like, that we're able to do that in a static medium,
Mhm.
to show movement.
Yeah.
And nothing's moving, but everything's moving. I mean, it kind of like blows my mind. It's like, as close to magic as we can get, really.
I think the hardest thing to draw is or paint is water and fire.
Yeah.
Things that are constantly moving, because people do stand still. Although we're always moving, twitching, aren't we?
Yeah.
But Gene Colan is a master. Steve Ditko as well. Steve Ditko's drawings, to me, in Spider-Man, have a certain grace to them, like ballet type of things. And Kirby's going to punch the mountain down, aren't they? Because he draws gods, doesn't he? But Steve Ditko and Gene Colan, their work does flow, and there is a movement there, and it's a beautiful thing, really. And like I was saying about Giacoya, is a good inker, but I think he sort of, if you will, slowed Gene Colan's work down. He lost that movement. He was better inking Kirby and people like that.
Yeah,
that's just my opinion.
I was listening to an interview quite some time ago, actually, pretty much when I came back to comics, and it was David Lloyd.
Yeah.
And I ended up working with David a couple of times on his Aces Weekly,
right.
which was a bit cool, to be honest. And I remember watching him, and he was talking about how he'd come to being an artist a little bit later, not as late as some of the greats, but a little bit later. And but he was also talking about how covers were made, and he was showing this cover that he'd done. And he was talking about how the energy is lost in every single level you go through. So he was talking about, you've got this sketch, which is all energy. All it is energy, because it's simple lines. And then you get into the sketch and you put in the detail, not the detail, but like get the anatomy right, stuff like that. And it loses a little bit. And then it gets inked, or then it gets finished penciled, and it loses a little bit more. And then it gets inked and it loses a little bit more. And he said the real art of the best storytellers is to keep as much of that initial energy throughout the process. And if you can do that, you bring something special to the page.
Yeah, that's my most frustrating thing. It's like, seeing all that energy in the initial sketch just disappear.
It's really hard, though.
That's why it was
really difficult.
It was great to see in the 80s, I think it was mid-80s, when they published Gene Colan's Nathaniel Dusk from his pencils.
Yes.
And all that energy that you're talking about is there, and it's absolutely incredible. I think he coloured it. Did he hand colour it as well? He painted it into it, because I seem to remember it's sort of in washes and things. But it's reprinted from the pencils, and it's absolutely marvelous to look at. And you think, wow, this is incredible work. And like you say, 15 people didn't get hold of it to slow it down.
Yeah.
I mean, right the way. I mean, I have my own. As you all do as artists, as we all do, I have my own battles, my own attacks of OCD and self-doubt. And you look through. I mean, I've been fighting for a long time with myself over pencils and inks, right the way down to where I finally realized just what my inspirations were, when it only took me 40 years. I was a slow learner, but I found where my real inspiration were, what I was really looking for in my artwork. And I'm still wrestling with it now. I'm still feel like I've now moved back to starting to do an awful lot more inking traditionally.
Good.
I ink digitally, but I try very hard for it to look like real inks. Okay, I don't like vectors, and I'm very restrictive on that. So I keep it very much based to a screen version of what I would be doing in real life. But I'm looking for more life. Do you know what I mean? I'm looking for more energy constantly. So I see my inks and I think, it's looking really clean. So the OCD is there. Oh, these beautiful clean inks. They look clean inks. They look lovely. And I'm thinking, no, I need something more. And so I'm starting to move back to a traditional work. So I'm penciling digitally and then bringing it out of the computer and penciling the output. And so I'm managing to get the OCD aspect of my approach to it by being fully in control of exactly how the pencils are done, and then letting myself go a little bit on the inks in the real world scenario and traditional inks. And that's bringing a little bit more life to my work, which is exactly what I wanted. I wanted that more energy, but it's a constant fight. You're constantly striving to do more with your work, and the energy aspect is really where it's at for me. Trying to get more life. It's like you were saying, Daphne. The ability for any comic book artist to create some kind of movement from still pictures, that's magic. It's a magic thing. And if you ever manage to do a little bit of it, you're kind of like, oh, I got that right, but the rest of it's rubbish. Do it again.
No, what's funny is that when I first got a Wacom tablet like a couple of years ago, and I was like really trying to ink directly onto the screen. I mean, what's really funny is that most people who get a Wacom, it's like you said, it's like they're looking for the smoothest line possible, the vectors and all that. And for me, it's like the inking wasn't working for me unless I can imitate. I was able to imitate the shake that my hand does when I'm inking traditionally.
Yeah, well, I've actually got a tool that removes my shake. Okay, and for the longest time, I mean, I did only Death Can Save Us for the most part like that, but I did several pages that were fully inked because I wanted to give them out as perks in the campaign. And once I'd got them down to the right size and everything was coloured in and what have you, and I laid the letters on, I couldn't see a huge amount of difference except for those little, like you talked about, those little shakes. And then I went and sort of looked back through all the stuff that I love, and I thought, damn it, that's what I should be doing. That's where I should be at.
It's like, that little moment where you screw up the line.
I think a lot of times, a lot of the time, the best parts are the mistakes.
Yeah,
that's what makes it. That's what makes it real. This is, see, you know what I think about computer artwork, and I wouldn't stop anybody doing it. And I'm not saying it's not a great thing, but it's just not for me. But I've been looking at writing an article about it for Comics Unlimited about the letterers, and I was looking at Artie Simek and Artie Simek and Joe Rosen. Joe Rosen. And to me, those two are the best ever. But when you look at their work, which is obviously done directly onto the page in those times, you can see that each letter isn't the same. Even though they've been doing it for 25 years at that point and they're brilliant, each letter is still slightly different. Now, when you do it on a computer, it's perfect. And I've done it on a computer, and I think I won't do it again. It's just laziness, I think. But every letter is just perfect. It spoils it. Don't you get it? It spoils it. The letter, because when I've said this before, when I put a Kirby piece on the artwork on the wall, I've got the lettering as well, and it's wonderful. But you lot have just got a blank page with no words on. Do you understand what I mean? You've even got a piece of artwork hanging on the wall.
We used to know a guy who lettered who lettered traditionally for Marvel for the longest time, but he had to stop because he had nerve damage. That fun stuff that we have to risk, our careers on.
Let's not walk across the street. Old.
Yeah, and they're. I mean, I kid, but it's like, there is a difference between something that's like lettering that's done by hand and doing it on the computer. There's a certain sterility to it. Yeah, but it's efficiency, not laziness.
That's right. Yeah, but it's.
So that
you see,
that's me. Okay, that's digital pencils and then inked over the top with a brush. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. And I would love to have. I would love to have more lettering on there, but it comes down to time.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
I just don't have the time to do hand lettering. If you want to do it for free for me, Glenn.
I'll do it. Yeah.
Maybe in the middle, maybe in the middle of his Himalayan treks or something, he can letter for us.
if you trust me with doing your lettering and your inking, I'll do it.
Oh, here we go.
What I'd like to do right now is pull up my favorite panel from an upcoming story that Russ did that I'm getting the privilege to print in the Indie Volt Revolt book. And that's right here. It's a simple conversation. triumph over the little guy, says you. But look at the dynamics here, the tilted camera, the my favorite's the hammer. Just the whole dynamics of the panel is just amazing to me.
Fantastic. Yeah.
I really enjoyed that, actually.
And just think how good it would look if the lettering had been put on the page. It would look like a silver-aged Kirby Buscema page, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but if you have to compare this to people, the inking in the background reminds me a lot of Dave Cockrum. The dynamics, the hammer, the just the look of it, and especially the grayscale, really reminds me of Gil Kane.
Yeah, that guy looks like Gil Kane, who is old enough.
Well, if he's a little taller and looked mean, he probably wouldn't. Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. But that letter would be superb.
I love this panel.
But that's digital. I had to do that digital because I had no choice. I had to get it out quickly. So I think it comes down to tools.
You didn't eat that by hand?
No, it comes down to tools,
beautiful
and
work.
it comes down to speed.
Also, it's like, it's not a Rust panel unless there's at least 15 people in it.
I cursed that. I said to Rick, I said, look, I've got a few ideas. I want to do these backup stories, and I want one of the backup stories to go to Indie Vault. And I said, what I'd quite like to do is sort of see some of the adventures that War, or maybe the others, went on. But we worked out that War was probably the best one to do, and that's why it's called Horseman's Tales. And he said, right. Well, I said, well, what have you got? He said, okay, well, give me a few ideas. And I said, I'd quite like a few things. And he said, right. He says, I've got one that's a Western, because I was talking about maybe him being in a bar, like sort of Thor and Hercules, when they're in that bar and John Buscema drew it, and there's like all these craggy Viking people around them and everything. I thought that would be quite cool. And I said, so like I'd quite like sort of something sort of Viking-y, or maybe something a Western, or maybe sort of a bar. And then he came back and he went, right. He said, I could do you three things. He said, I've got this idea for a Western. Then he gave me an idea. And I thought, oh, God, that's bloody brilliant. And then he says, I've got this idea for Viking where he comes to Earth and he's helping the Vikings defeat the Kraken, which is like this tentacled monster. And I thought, oh my God, that sounds fabulous. And then he said, and I've got this Star Wars bar scene fight. And I thought, oh, I've got to have a bar scene fight. And then and then he sent it to me, and I'm like, oh bugger, I wish he hadn't sent this to me. There's all these people in it, and I've got to get this done in a week, and I've got to draw all these people. It ended up being quite cool. I mean, I can always poke holes in my own artwork. It's constantly in progress position that I have, but it's not a bad. I was quite pleased with that when it came out. The other thing we've got is that there's a 3-panel shot where he's talking about, where he's sort of reminiscing about his time prior to where he is now, and 2 of the reminiscing panels are the Western story and the Viking story, so they're self-referential. Mm-hmm. So they'll be good fun to put in the later books. I was so pleased, thank you, to be able to put this into Indie Vault and have a cover as well.
It makes it even more amazing to know that you felt you just kicked it out in a week.
Yeah, and be printed by Arrow Comics as well. It's like
if you'd given that to me to ink, I would have wanted to colour it as well.
Randy, you got to talk to Randy about that, because he wanted to print a black and white book.
It would print, wouldn't it? It would print in black and white, in grayscale.
Yeah, I could have, but I just didn't have the time.
It will be in color when he does the book. So
if you want to do that in color for the next book, you'd be welcome, Glenn.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
If you wanted to do that, just let me know sort of how you need it and what you need, and I could do that for you.
Sounds good.
And then it would be something even more. I won't use that. Even more unique. That's just crap. It's unique. There's just really bad grammar. It would be even unique.
We don't need no education.
It would be even more departure from all the other stuff that was in there, as well as it being sort of this thing that had been in Arrow Comics as well. So and again, like if you want to do another one, Randy, I would be happy to have those other horsemen's tales turn up.
One book at a
right.
time. Yes.
Yeah.
Don't let me stop you from doing short stories.
Actually,
I've got too much to do as it is.
Well, I mean, for considering that you are doing like a long-term, your long-term project, with Only Death Can Save Us, I have two questions. One is like, so you have your main story, which is, I guess that we got the first trade and it's going to continue. Like, so with all these side stories, do you wait until like your main story hits a particular part and then you release like related material that references it, or do you figure you just release the stories and then it'll come together, it'll make more sense later as everything comes out? Like is it a spoiler if it's like too far ahead for people to remember?
No, the three, because of the way Death was able to travel by using the keystone, as you find out in the first book, effectively time and space are immutable. So he can go wherever he wants, and of course, to a degree, his fellow horsemen, who are obviously immortals, can kind of come and go as they please as well. So the horsemen's tales, which are primarily about war, but one of the other not pestilence, famine will turn up in one of them as well. They can be written whenever. They're completely outside the scope of the main story, and they're just fun addendums of what these guys were doing while Death was bored stiff.
A bit like Tales from Asgard.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah. I mean, Asgard and that whole thing is a big inspiration for me for the whole work. But even with the 3 books themselves, I've got an arc with Chrissy, and Chrissy will never go away. But there's this arc with Chrissy. But then I could go back to the second version of the universe before this version, and do Lord of the Rings in space. So I can do anything with these guys. At that point, maybe Satana wouldn't be there. It would be a different Dark Lord, much like Lord of the Rings, where you had, was it Morgoth, or what's the one before Sauron?
Oh boy,
There were 2 Dark Lords, I think, prior to Sauron, and they were all I think it was Morgoth or something like that. And
somebody in the chat will know.
Somebody in the chat will do. And they were servants of that Dark Lord. So I can come up with it's eternal stuff. Cool. I can do what I want with it, so I can carry on with that where they are from after book 3. I could continue, or I could just go back to a previous version of the universe. Morgoth, that's it.
Morgoth. Jake says yes.
Or I could go back to a previous version of the universe, because there are multiple versions. It's cyclical, and just start again and do what I want.
Oh, there you go. And my second question though, when you started doing your work digitally, like aside from the undo key, what do you think was like the biggest change to your artwork that you were like going, oh my God, I can do this digitally that you couldn't do like traditionally, or it was kind of like more complicated to do traditionally?
For me, my personal journey on this was, I was a penciler and a penciler only, and that's it. I didn't touch inks, and I only touched inks once I got hold of digital inks. So and even then I was never going to use a tablet, like a one. I was never going to do that. I wanted to get a pen on the screen. And so in 2008, I bought myself my first Cintiq while I was still working and doing some other stuff, and started playing around with it. And so what I've done is I've effectively nurtured my style and my inking style via a digital process. And instead of worrying so much about how I use a brush, I was worried more about the actual style. And I nurtured that through the fact that I was scared shitless of using a brush, because I didn't feel confident enough. I did play, but I didn't feel confident enough. So I used that as a way of building up my confidence to the point where now I think pens have come a long way. Brush pens have come a long way. So I don't actually have to use a brush and dip it in ink, I've got some great pens that are doing almost exactly the same job, and I'm able to use that and be confident with it. So effectively, I used this Cintiq to create my style. Now, I would say there are several things that have sped up me being able to create that over the period of time I've been drawing and doing comics, and those things are all to do with doing it digitally. So I've kind of circumvented some of the heartache and pain from developing your own style because of the way that I approached what I did on a Cintiq. So as far as I was concerned, I had Photoshop open, I got myself some custom brushes, and that was the end of it. There were no other techniques. There were no other special things that I could do digitally. It was just that it was a virtual piece of paper and a virtual brush, and that nothing else was different. So that's the way I approached it. And now it's come to a point where it's actually given me the confidence to go into the real world, use traditional inks, which I've done multiple times now and had great results, and start nurturing that technique that you have with a real pen in your hand or a real brush in your hand, and how you get those little flicks and details, get that just right. But I've been able to build that up by using the digital process. What I would say is, don't do that unless you have experience doing the real thing.
Right. Yeah.
When I say that is, okay, I wasn't confident with inks, but I'd had a career where I'd been drawing, designing, creating stuff in production environments constantly for 20, 30 years before I decided, I'm going to use a Cintiq to try and, develop my inking style. Don't ever just rush to a digital platform to do anything. Get out a pencil and paper. Yeah. It's the most important lesson I can give to hopefully give to anyone.
Yeah, because that was the one thing when I started playing around with it. I was actually more intimidated by the concept of forgetting how to do it on paper. Getting it, there's certain things where it's it's okay, I have to get it right on paper because I can't sit there just erasing everything and redrawing it when you have the undo button.
I came from it the other way, because I was most focused on the digital side. The thing I had was not erasing things. I kind of got my head around that because I do a lot of sketch covers and stuff like that, and you have to do those for real. So I was still, I still had practice, still doing stuff. It was using the save key. So every time I was sitting there drawing away, and I'm thinking, where's my save key? It's no, it's real life. You don't need to save key the real life. But I know what you're talking about. And it is, your mind gets so used to doing something a certain way that you do become sort of conditioned to do it in that way. Right. And that's why I would suggest to anybody, whatever you're doing, whether you do mostly traditional, mostly digital, give it a go. Do it. And what I feel I'm doing now is I'm getting the best of both worlds at the moment, because where I pencil on digitally, as far as I'm concerned, it's a far faster process than the pencils I would do out in the real world, because I would use a light box, I'd use a photocopier, I'd use all kinds of things to get my pencils to a certain place before you'd go and ink them. And in a lot of cases, people are doing that and then sending it to people, and they're digitally, so they're doing it in the real world, sending it, and people are digitally inking them. Whereas my process is no. It's much easier to do that digitally. You get exactly what you want. You can resize things. You don't have to get the photocopy.
Yeah, the resizing things is
there's a library of stuff right in front of you from the internet, and you can get it. You get all the reference you need with. It's absolutely perfect. I get those digital pencils exactly the way that I want them with my style. I pump them out onto a piece of board, and then I can be free with the inks. I can put all those little bits of crap in them and so what you're effectively creating is truly mixed media. So I look back to people like Steranko and Kirby and what have you, where they put the photography and the photocopy stuff onto their artwork. I feel like I'm just really doing that another way round. I'm using mixed media to create it. But at the end of the day, although I haven't got a huge amount of physical artwork, from now on, I want to see I want to see a big bundle of artworks turn up. I want to be able to have a big portfolio of like pages and pages and pages. Go, right, this is it. So that's where I'm going now. So my journey is kind of snaked through the digital process to come full circle. But the processes are there to speed up your daily work. But at the same time, I think whatever it is, don't get lost in it. Stay focused at the output. What do you want out of it at the end of the day? And I have to cut off my OCD and think about just what the real thing is you want at the end of the day. It doesn't matter that those lines aren't perfect.
Yeah.
What matters is the energy and the storytelling.
But what it means is at the end of it all, right? What's the greater thing to open? An envelope full of beautifully drawn artwork, on paper or board.
Oh yeah.
Or get that.
For real.
Good point.
For real.
Holding up a thumb drive
really.
to our radio audience.
Yeah. For real.
But for me, it took that time. I mean, I effectively went on a sped up journey of drawing comics.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd wanted to draw comics for my whole life. It's the same story for every comic book artist. They've always wanted to draw comics. And I got my chance in mid 90s. I penciled some pages, sent them off to via the snail mail. It took weeks to go backwards and forwards between myself and the guy in the States. I think it was John Louis Lewandowski. Was it? It was Lewandowski. That was it. That was the new talent manager for Marvel, and he took my work and said, "Yeah, absolutely, you've nailed it. This is really
doesn't
really
he play
good."
for Bayern Munich?
He probably does. Yes, it's a rather good right forward.
And he still has to return some artwork.
And he said, "Yeah, you've got it. You've nailed it." And I sent him some more stuff, and he went, "Yeah, this is really good. But you've got younger people on your tail. I'd like you to do this." And I did some more stuff. He said, "Yeah, I'll send it. I'll get it round to all the editorial team." And then nothing. So it's like it happens that way, and it was in the days of snail mail. Like there wasn't any instant backwards and forwards. And I know there are other artists. I'm not going to say, "Oh, that was why I didn't get the work." There were other artists that were better than me, and there were other artists that obviously had the connections that I didn't. It's a real thing. I'm not decrying it. I'm just saying it's real. It's a true thing, and it didn't work for me. So I went away and had a career. I had a life as an art director, as a production designer, as a programmer, and had my own businesses, and then came back to it in 2010 and said, right, well, this is the time. Either I go on some more bloody programming courses and give my pound of flesh to whatever employer has me, or I say sod it, sell up and go and try my own thing. And that's what I did with a very supportive family. I will say that it's also about the life that you decide to lead, about quality of life. And I'd been fed up working for the man, and I decided that was what I was going to do. But that meant that I was 20 years behind all the people that were the same age as me, quite apart from some of the fantastic young artists that were constantly stepping up. The only problem for younger artists is that I was older and had better insurance. That was the way it works, Like I paid my mortgage. I didn't have massive bills in the same way as young people with families and what have you. So I could take chances. I could give myself to the art. I could absolutely give myself to it, and it's not easy to do that because in order for you to get better, you got to do it every day, or at least most days. Okay. And I'm not just talking about sitting with your sketchbook and all the rest of it. I'm talking about the craft of drawing comic books, producing sequential art. So I went at it hammer and tong, and I was naive at first and thought, oh yeah, I'll get a job. It didn't matter just what production techniques I used or how good a director I'd been on a company board. It's like, nice, get stuffed, mate. You don't know the right people and you're not very good anyway. So you have to just knuckle down and give it the 10,000 hours. And I think I probably have given it the 10,000 hours now. But even that isn't enough. You got to keep improving and keep making your way. So I still found myself behind my other compatriots, people who were the same age as me, you know, like, oh, do you know Gary Leach? No, no, I don't. and he's not
or
at all
even
related
worse,
to me.
you know Robin Leach?
Yeah, it's like, yeah. Do you know this? Like, did you please just sod off?
I have the same problem with Ron Zimmerman. It's
Yeah.
like,
Wow.
no relation. No. Don't know him.
So
Don't know.
you just have to keep going and keep doing it. But the only way to do that is to give yourself to it. So I found my own way, and so coming all the way back around with that diatribe back to using the digital process, it's not a shortcut.
Yeah.
It's not a shortcut, because in order for you to be able to do it the way I did it, you need my history and my experiences, and everybody getting into the world of comics has their own way of getting in. There is no way of getting into comics. There is no one route into comics. Everybody's got their own story, and my development of my art and my style, my production techniques is my story. I'm freely happy to give every information about how I've done it, so somebody else can find some information. That's why any of the stuff that you see on my YouTube channels, I don't like the word tutorial, because everybody's got their own way of coming to it. You know, it's just an example of the way that I come to it.
I was on Brian Morris's show a couple of weeks ago, and I was talking about this, and you know, I've done a couple of things in my life, and I've been to a few places, and people have said to me, or they're not happy with that. They're not happy with the things I've done, the things I've achieved. And I say to them, well, all I've done is take my opportunity. I didn't stop your opportunity.
Yeah, that's true.
And a lot of people, it's just jealousy, I think. And a lot of people, because I think most people don't really do anything.
No, I mean, it's difficult.
At least they don't achieve their dreams, or they don't even chase their dreams. Well, if you don't chase your dream, you're not going to achieve it.
Yeah.
And like I say, I've taken my opportunities, but I've probably missed more opportunities than I've taken.
Oh yeah.
I'm just grateful that I've had the opportunity to do anything.
Yeah.
I am constantly pinching myself, like not in that kind of way. I'm constantly pinching myself that I've gotten here, that I am here, that I have what I have, that I've done what I've done. I mean, you know, we talk about how to get into the industry. I got a break doing Doctor Who, and me and the wife were doing cartwheels. You know, back when I could cartwheel, we were doing cartwheels around the studio. Like, oh my God, I'm on a massive brand. This is Doctor Who. This is effectively Great Britain's version of Mickey Mouse. This guy is huge. And then Doctor Who sunk without a trace. I mean, at the moment, it's not being watched. It's not, and of course, on top of that, the BBC made some massive errors, as far as I'm concerned, about what time they put it on in the evening and all kinds of stuff like that, so that the younger generation kind of peeled off. And then the book that I was on, which was for younger viewers, just it completely lost its readership and you know, went. So I'm thinking, I've got this break. I'm on this massive brand. And then straight after that, I got thrown onto Cartoon Network. And I'm thinking, this is a goer. Come on. Reboot of Ben 10. I'm on this for 5 years at least. No, that's because they're not encouraging small boys to read comics. Yeah. And it's just, you never know where it's going to get you. However, those are fantastic brands to have worked on. I'm privileged to have worked on them, but also to have worked with the people that worked on them. To be part of the Doctor Who family is a special thing. Well, you don't realise until you are actually part of it.
Just as an aside to Doctor Who, I always maintain that the BBC don't really know what they've got, or at least don't know what to do with it.
Most large corporations are like that, though.
Yeah, I don't think
have no clue the potential of what they have.
That's right. I think they can't. I think the basic problem with the BBC and Doctor Who is that they can't make up their mind what it is, whether it's a children's program or an adult program, because it could be both.
It should be an all ages light entertainment sci-fi fun. That's what it should be. No messages, absolutely. Just make it fun. Okay, I'm not going to get into the arguments about it. Just make it fun, and then people will watch it. So, you know, rolling back, I got my opportunity to work on these massive brands, and it's been an absolute you know, privileged to have worked on them, but it didn't do much for me at all. I started doing indie comics in the US, and nobody had a clue who I was. It didn't matter that I'd done 82 issues of Draw the Marvel Way under license from Marvel editors. That didn't make any difference. Nobody had a clue who I was. And I didn't get a chance to do any of the Marvel, monthlies because I just could not break through for whatever reason. Okay. I could not break through. So your journey to wherever you are is replete with forks and sidesteps. And all you got to do is give it your best, work as hard as you can, dream, but at the same time, have a plan B. I always had an exit strategy. I've always got a plan B, and you just work your nuts off, and you will get somewhere. Or if you don't have any nuts, specific lucky parts. Okay, whatever it might be, work your hardest, give it your all, and really do. There's no doubt about it that there is money in comics. Don't let anybody tell you there isn't. Okay, because there is, and I'm not talking to you guys. You already know this. People out there is, but it requires hard work and dedication. Yeah. You can't just turn up, make a comic, and people will give you £1 million to do a Netflix series. That's not the way it works. Okay, you've got to put your heart and soul into it.
What you need to do is marry a royal.
Yeah, that would hurt. Yeah,
yeah, really.
And then on top of that, to make good, great comic books requires heart and soul. Yeah. It requires it. It's not an option.
Yeah. And on a side note of the corporate thinking, ageism only exists in the corporate mind. Yeah. Because especially this art form, you can do it as long as you have eyesight, as long as you have control, hand-eye coordination. You can keep doing comics, and you should keep doing sequential art for as long as you want to. And a lot of these guys, a lot of the material that you see out there that you marvel and you gaze at that are iconic are done by folks that are close to retirement or in retirement or beyond retirement age, that are still at their board because they have that knowledge, they have that skill set, and they have those muscles, those artistic muscles to kick this stuff out on a regular basis. Because Kirby kept producing until he couldn't. There's so many people out there that you see that are literally at this point producing until they can't, but the big corporations decide, well, you're 30, so you no longer get what the kids need. So get out of here, even though their market is now trying to aim at a 55-year-old.
Yeah. I mean, I've always, it's funny because it's like, it took me a while to really accept that it's like, I don't think the books that I'm working on now, if for some reason I had had my shit together back then and got everything done in my 20s, I don't think these books would have even resonated with me the way they do now. Than if I had spent that 30 years really honing the craft and the story and working on it and having all the experience. Like I needed that 30 years of experience. To get the story that I have now, than if I had done everything in my 20s and finished the book then. And it's like I remember the scripts that JD wrote back then. And sometimes we laugh thinking back as to how amateurish and horrible they were.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people mature at different rates. Yeah. Okay. And I remember the stuff that I sent into Marvel in the mid-90s, I was desperately trying to be Jim Lee. And as I've said before, there's only one Jim Lee, and only Jim Lee can be the Jim Leeest of all Jim Lees. And it doesn't matter who tries to copy him, they ain't Jim Lee. All right. And so, but it was a very, very popular type of style. It was getting everywhere. And of course they liked what I was doing. But I look back on that stuff now and go, oh no. And it required a maturity to first appreciate Jack Kirby. Yeah. Okay. But so many other artists and so many real inspirations, okay, that I wasn't aware of because I was just seeing the colors and and I got tricked away with the whole detail thing. Economy
I think we all went through that phase.
Economy of line is so important, as is economy of action. And it took that maturity, and I wouldn't be the comic book artist I am now if I'd have started 20 years prior or 30 years prior.
And also it's like when thinking about Only Death Can Save Us, like that, I mean, would it be safe to say that that book could only exist now and not like 20 years ago?
Probably, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think on the plus side of what's going on now is, especially with the indie market opening up in the way it is that because for a while there, about 10 years ago, I saw quite a few different styles turning up at Marvel, which was good.
Yeah.
But it's kind of gone a little bit blobby now, isn't it? It's all sort of like it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
And now with the indie market blowing up the way it has, so many different styles, so many different options, and it was time to bring that kind of let's call it cleaner. It isn't cleaner, but I'm struggling for the words. It's the way that those books were written and the way that they were illustrated was a little clearer in some way. I don't know quite how to verbalize it, but and that's what I wanted. I wanted that clarity, and it isn't all about the lines and making it look like Joe Sinnott is. Obviously, I never could, but following that man and following those kind of styles. But it's also about how it comes over on the page, and actually that's my art isn't going to change radically, but it's growing all the time, and you're going to see the difference in the different books.
I think we're really hitting an age of independence as far as the art form goes, at least here in the States. There's a level of creativity out there I haven't seen since the late 80s, when you had everybody doing every black and white book, every genre that you can imagine under the sun. And it was going widespread and starting to get a lot of attention, and it was quelled really quickly when Image started the Circle template era.
I think what you were saying there about maturity, the exception to the rule, and the incredible thing for me is that, I mean, you were right what you were saying, that you do need to mature. But Kirby was doing Captain America when he was 23, So
I mean, he's
you understand? I'm not.
He's Kirby.
Exactly.
That's the whole point, though. Marvel wouldn't have matured, for example, if Stan Lee hadn't been doing comics since he was 14 and had gone through very rich times, very lean, incredibly lean times, to the point where he was sitting, behind a desk in pretty much a closet, and that was his entire Marvel or Timely at the time, or Atlas, entire publishing empire, where he had a closet full of original art that Martin come in and opened the closet door, saw all this artwork, and said, "Don't you hire another person till all this art's gone. No more jobs go out."
I would also suggest that people of 22 and 23 back then would have had a harder life.
Yeah, I would think so.
And maybe would have had a little bit more life experience by the time they got to it.
If they would have gone out and served militarily, they would have experienced the world, or at least in the Peace Corps or whatever.
I think it's a generalization, and I would never want to put down the younger generation. But I think it is something that was
let's put it like this. Brooklyn in like the 30s and 40s is vastly different than Brooklyn now.
I'm going to be wearing one of those beards.
For our radio audience, you're listening to an episode of the Sunday Funnies for the February 21st, 2021. We need to jump back into the chat here. John Celestri, who says he'll be with us in a minute, says animation key poses capture the extreme point of a movement. So do the most energetic comic panels.
Yeah.
Jake applauds for that.
Draw the Marvel Way by Stan Lee and John Buscema. Check it out.
Jake Twister is asking about Indie Vote Revolt. Says, could you give me a submission deadline, Randy? Yes, you're late
today.
Thank you. No,
yesterday.
The Revolt campaign, provided I can get past this commercial job, hopefully, which I'm hoping to do within the next couple of days. We'll be building up that campaign and probably launching it on March 1st. We'll be taking the month of March, with Varian's permission, of course, and celebrating the second anniversary of the Indie Volt podcast, and the Indie Volt Revolt book will definitely be a part of that. So we will have been on the air for 2 years. So folks out there in Radio Land, make sure you tell your friends about us. Make sure you spread the word. We love our radio audience. Well, Varian's not around just at the moment to give us those numbers, but we know that we're listened to all over the world through indievoltradio.com or indievolt.com. You can get to that. So deeply appreciate that. Joe again says, I admire that, Russ. I won't trust myself with paintbrushes and pens. With India inks, seems very and just pulled himself off. So I admire that, Russ. I won't trust myself with paintbrushes and pens with India inks. I hated most things I hand inked. I make too many mistakes where I said not work on penciling the page over.
Meanwhile, I'm posting photos of my hands completely covered in ink, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm just working.
I still have that callus on my finger from holding that ink brush. So yeah, that's what whiteout was for, Joe.
Yeah.
I found some great whiteout pens.
Whiteout and white stickers work really good. White mailing labels, you just take that, put it right over top of the art, flatten it down, and just redraw it again.
Yeah.
So yeah. Marv says, as a purist, or as a purist, before I've started to use a tablet, now I can draw ink faster, and I don't trace from photos like some folks on YouTube do. Are you calling somebody out, Marv? No, just anyway. That was a reason
I do what I need to do. Okay.
For years, digital art. Pop wants to remind us that only Steve can save us. Yes, Pops, of course. Only Steve. Hello, my friends. Y'all smash that like button. Please do smash that like button. We've got a lot more people watching us now than are liking us. So please hit that like button. Joe again. Hey, Pops. Thanks for last night. Anyway. Okay. No, Joe had a really big, really good podcast last night. I'm sure Pops was a part of it. Hello, everyone from Kino Subway. Hello, Kino. Hope you're doing well. Pops says, Joe, hope things are smoother than after I left. Oh, okay. Kino. Hey, Pops. Everybody says hello. It did went smoother. Black belt that can't cartwheel. Interesting.
In my defense, I can spin hook kick a bottle off the top, cap off the top of a bottle. So
look. He may be old, but he can still kick your ass. Okay.
I did the hook kick challenge and managed to take a bottle top off.
Again, agreeing with Russ and focus the craft and not worry about the art.
Yeah.
Cartoon Network was a great channel. It's a key word, Marvy. I used to watch it every day. Now, what the fuck? They on Hanna-Barbera. And they don't show those wonderful cartoons anymore. Yes, Marvy, that's exactly right. And a lot of that stems from their mindset of not wanting to deal with the old stuff. Okay, save my nuts. Check. Yes. Anyway, there's the irritating thing, Marvy, is they also started a channel to show all that old Hanna-Barbera material called Boomerang here in the States, and it lasted for a good 10, 15 years until they started showing Powerpuff Girls and Johnny Bravo and all of the old Cartoon Network stuff. Now that channel sucks just as much as Cartoon Network. That's the truth. I think everyone wanted to be Jim Lee. Yeah. Hey, folks. Hey, Larita MJB, thanks for listening so much. Jake says, fuckers. I did a 17-hour shift yesterday. Anyway, posting progress on Twitter. Oh, okay. Well, he might have been yelling at me for that, for telling him he was late. So anyway, Joe, you're not really late. Just get it in by the 1st. You got a couple weeks. Yep. Same Daphne. If my hands aren't completely black at the end of the day, I haven't done enough.
If you're not scraping underneath your nails, what are you doing?
Oh yeah, and that ink stain that doesn't come off for weeks.
Yeah,
that's a joy. Yeah, it's cool. Mindset. You got to mean mind control. Jake says, and Mike Jimmy. What? Is that a Steveism? Pops. What? Hiya, Pops. Okay. Thanks everybody in the chat. We appreciate you all.
Also, it's like I figure I'll spend a little bit more time stroking Russ's ego. So the thing that you were you were talking about, like how things like with Doctor Who, that they should be like it could be both. It's like it doesn't need to be just exclusively children or exclusively adults. It could be something that's both. And that was the thing that surprised me most about Only Death Can Save Us. was that it was such an unusual, like a vibe that I just wasn't used to for the longest time. Like I'm so used to things like either being one or the other. And yeah, it's like that book was actually fun. Like I still haven't read the whole thing yet, but still though, it's like I'm reading it. It's like it was fun, and the dynamic between the characters was just like literally blew my mind as to how like natural it was. And it was like what's funny is that for all the demons and the fighting and everything, the book has something really innocent about it.
Thank you very much. That's the best compliment, because that's what I was aiming for. It's those comics I used to read as a kid that my older brother would read, and he was in the army, so he'd go away to the army and he'd be reading the same comics that I was, and there was a big gap between us. It's like a 12-year gap between us. And so if we could both read them and both thoroughly enjoy them, why can't that happen now? I mean, like,
throw us some examples, Russ.
There's a dichotomy going on right at the moment, okay, about, comics are for kids.
Right.
And yet, have you seen the stuff they write about in Marvel?
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's not stuff, buddy. That's crap. That's
right.
It's like
it's for kids, but it's for kids. But I have to, but I have to think about Logan and Cyclops running a train on Jean Grey.
Exactly. It's like
true.
I go back to it. It's romance, not sex. Action, not violence. A hero's journey, not ideology. These are the things that make a story fun. Yeah. Okay, and that's what you're trying to do. So back in the day, I would read Fantastic Four. I'd read Thor and there was even Batman, which was a bit dark because I was reading. I've got a whole collection of them here from Neil Adams. But they were Sherlock Holmes in a cape, in a cowl. But at the same time, there was action and there was intrigue, and it's like.
You were getting a lot of Denny O'Neil scripts back then that were finely written. Yes. And
so as a boy, anywhere between the ages of 5 and 15, I was reading all kinds of material from comic books, and none of it was ever as inherently explicit as the idea of having a threesome, which is what Marvel are doing. And I don't understand why everything has to be interjected with sex. Why do you need to have sex in everything? You don't need it, okay? People can have relationships. Like, back in the day, I was reading Marvel comics in the mid-'80s, and there were relationships going on all the time, okay? And it really wouldn't have been the way it was. My mum and dad had been hippies, okay? Like, it didn't matter if you were gay. Fuck it. It doesn't matter. So as much as there was, it wasn't as great back then as it is now, okay? And it has come a long way. I didn't have any problems with it. So if I'd have seen a gay couple, it wouldn't have bothered me. Okay, it was just about relationships. So you had these relationships. You had Johnny going after Crystal in the Fantastic Four and being totally heartbroken when he got there, and Quicksilver was already there on the job. Okay, it's like but it wasn't explicit. It was about the relationship. And as a boy at the age of like I say, between 5 and 15, you're not stupid. Relationships go on. Your mum and dad have got one, for Christ's sake. It's like you understand that there are relationships, but you don't have to get involved in the nuts and bolts of it. But you just don't need to.
That's also shown in the artwork of today, isn't it? Where you get. When Jack Kirby was doing the comics and all those people, you'd get Doctor Doom coming through the wall, and Sue would be hiding behind Ben, and there was trouble. But now you get Doctor Doom coming through the wall, and Sue's going, "Look at my chest." And
then, my goodness, yeah.
And Reed's trim and cut and sharp, and look at me, I'm gorgeous, I'm the most handsome man ever. And it's got nothing to do with it.
No,
you get Doctor Doom, and
it's a bit over the top. It's a bit over the top. There's nothing wrong with it, with some good anatomy. But what you see, and I mean, you look at some of the anatomy in the Conan run from John Buscema. Jesus Christ, there's some gorgeous women in that. And Conan, if I was of another persuasion, I can tell you this: he's a rather attractive man. Okay, like he was gorgeous. He was a big hunk of a fella, and there was no need to see every sinew. You could tell, and in actual fact, if you actually look at real people, even when they're very muscular, you can't see every sinew.
Exactly.
You only see that. You only see that in bodybuilding magazines.
Speaking of muscular men, John Celestри's joined the chat.
Look at that imposing
Join the
man.
discussion. John, how are you?
Hey, there's dynamic stuff. Wow. Okay.
John, take a second, introduce yourself to the radio audience.
I'm John Celestri. I've been a classical 2D animator and comic book artist since 1974. So I've gone through. I animated Boba Fett in the Star Wars Holiday Special, Dragon's Lair, Space Ace, Rock and Rule, He-Man and She-Ra, and Batman.
Sometimes you have to say that slower for the youngins to absorb this.
Yeah, pretty
John,
much.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
He animated Boba Fett in the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Right. Yeah.
I animated on He-Man and She-Ra. I animated
the originals.
The original
Yeah.
He-Man and She-Ra. I animated on Rock and Rule. I've animated on Dragon's Lair and Space Ace.
Rock and Rule, kids. YouTube, look it up.
Yeah,
Yes.
really.
Rock and Rule is the Rocky Horror Show of animation.
It really is.
And you could not produce that today.
No.
You know, and also Batman. I've animated Batman. I've got my own comic books that I'm doing now. Bloodwing Angel is about as mature, but also it's for all ages. I drew that, I grew up on Edgar Rice Burroughs with John Carter of Mars and Tarzan. And if you read the descriptions, you had plenty of nudity, plenty of stuff going on there, and your mind could wander, so there is a certain amount of being truthful to a story doesn't mean you have to be cutesy and censor yourself. You can show what you would see in a gym or in a locker room, basically look at so much of what's going on Netflix. HBO, things that you can't escape it. But then again, sometimes as a kid, you'd open up the bathroom door and you'd see your mom washing up, and so and my mom would say, "What's the matter? What do you matter? You're ashamed to see your mother?" And that was her attitude. And we're talking about, for a 7-year-old and 8-year-old, she was not ashamed of where she was. So you're talking 1950s, but there was a practicality. There should be practicality and not just cutesy in the story. Just tell the bloody story.
Yeah. Yep. Listen to the legend, everyone.
Yeah, but also like one more thing that really impressed me with the book though is the dynamic between Death and Chrissy. Like I was because it's like I don't know why it's like because they had such a rapport that I was like.
So I have had other people.
Very natural between them that I just couldn't help but like. You're together, right? You're together, right?
I've had an array. I got an editor friend of mine to have a look at it, and he was very pleased with it. I was pleased that he was. He said some of the dialogue, I don't know. But he said that's a personal opinion, and I said, well, it is. I said because I know someone. Who really like the dialogue, and I've had other people mention the dialogue to me. So it is. It comes down to the you that audience. I've tried to make it all ages from a perspective of not so much all ages as far as anyone can read it. It's there for anyone to read, which means I'm not going to put huge amounts of gore in it. I'm not going to put huge amounts of boob in it. And you don't have to. You don't have to directly talk about the act.
Right,
you
yeah.
can talk about relationships instead. So
Because like
that's
even
where
the,
I come from.
right,
so.
well, even the violence kind of goes like I said, the thing is full of demons and fighting and whatnot, but it's like I said, it's like this, it's just very like you can give this book to anybody and not have to, you know, worry about, you know,
that was
like,
the
what are you trying
idea.
to sell my kid?
Yeah,
You know,
that was the idea. So
right.
so somebody would pick it up and go, oh, this is fine. I can leave this forever, and their kids might pick it up and go, what's that word? Like I did.
Right.
With Bronze Age books and go, oh, how does that work? Oh, look at that. That's somebody kicking the crap out of a bad guy. What's that word? You know, that's what you want them to do. You want them to pick that comic up and investigate themselves.
Joe says, I'm waiting for people to read the whole thing. Only Death Can Save Us. It's a fun romp, and I want to talk about it so bad.
Yeah, I'm like trying to get through 7 books at the same time. So yeah, it might take me a bit.
Jake says, if you want to make sex in comics, make the appropriate comics.
Yeah,
do it.
The donjinshis. Yeah, I mean, donjinshis. Those are like the separate little fan comics that the Japanese like doing.
I have
Are we talking
no
Tijuana
problem.
Bibles here, or what?
I guess there is a relation. That it's kind of related, but they usually tend to skew towards like hentai and stuff.
Yeah.
And
I have no problem with putting anything in comics. Anything you make a comic, there'll be an audience out there for it, but make it audience appropriate. Yeah. So if you're making superhero comics, you know, like fun action romps, okay, don't put threesomes in it, or even talk about threesomes.
Well, especially, but the thing is, especially if you're trying to market yourselves as making a kids product.
Exactly.
You see, that's the problem. It's like because I think that the I guess like the conflict I keep coming across is that people just look at comics as kids stuff anyway. So as much as I try, like with my books, to kind of like separate myself from like even with Ego Raven, I wanted to have like a more mature storyline. So I did everything I could to separate myself from the word kid and young adult and like really kind of like get it across that it's like, you know, it's like, look, you know, this is kind of where I'm skewing. But people are just going to look at that. It's like, oh, this is for kids, right? Like, you know, I get into trouble with Tall Tales all the time. It's like, this is for kids, right? And it's like, well, the panda on the cover is covered in blood. You tell me.
I think young adult is a bad label anyway, because a lot of those novels skirt fan fiction more than actual literature.
Right. And then it's like, you don't want to label it adult because it's a whole other connotation because it's like, I'm just trying to tell a mature story.
Well, the confusing thing from the mainstream publisher's perspective is they're talking about new markets and younger generation, and yet they put all that, they pile all that stuff into their stories instead of making them sort of actiony. And there's nothing, like I say, there's nothing wrong with talking about relationships. There's nothing talking about interpersonal relationships. There's no need to step over into that aspect of people's relationships. You can keep it more about the story and the action and how those relationships play off together whilst the story is going on. You know, and so I kind of get confused as to, well, where are you marketing these books to? Because if you're marketing them to the 35 to 65 age range of the people that were buying your comic books, okay, they're not that interested in that stuff. And if you really are for kids, then why are you putting it in there? I don't quite understand. I don't understand.
I think it's kind of like the taste buds have been so saturated. They're so... it's kind of like in the equivalent of salt, fat, and sugar, and then pepper, and then you start making things up because you're bored. You personally are bored. You don't know what it is that you're going for because the new market that you're trying to get, you're just trying to just regenerate what was used to be the big market. And so therefore you're starting to trying to make it excited to people who will pick up the books because there's no place for young kids to go and get it. But then, you know, kids are not, I think that the publishers just don't even know how to run the kitchen. That's basically
Yeah.
they don't know how to run the
Yeah.
kitchen. They are
true.
they are constantly coming up with all kinds of formulas that kind of look good on paper, ideas. But then once they try to get it across, they don't know where they're going.
No,
That's
you're right.
basically it.
And also, Jake points out, but then again, freedom of expression and sex have never been good mates in the U.S.
That's true. That's true. Because it's like I collect a lot of European comics, and the way they're just like really casual with it is amazing. I mean,
Same in
even
film.
it's like when
Yeah,
I was,
same with film.
when I was in Spain, when I was in Brazil, it's like their media is different.
Yeah.
The books were different, the comics were different.
I
They had specific kids' books,
Yeah.
but they had everything else too, and there was a certain casualness.
I think
to it,
what's
yeah.
lost. Yeah, I think what's lost is a certain amount of subtlety. I think that
Yeah.
audiences today, or at least people who in the entertainment business who put these things out, they have to explain everything and the sort of insult the intelligence of people. I think we covered this in another show about. I mentioned Alfred Hitchcock in the way that he doesn't make horror films. He makes suspense films.
Yeah,
it's all in your head. And in
Mhm.
Psycho, you never see that knife go in anybody.
Yeah.
No.
It's what you do in your head. But if they made that, well, they did remake the film, didn't they?
Yeah.
And you see all the gore and the blood, and well, you don't need that, do you? Because you can fill that in, hopefully. So I'm not sure whether the audience don't get it, or whether the people who are putting the stuff out for the audience don't get it.
Right. Yeah, because
And
for me, I mean, yeah,
And I think it's the latter.
I think one of the things with audiences, you talk about the classic comic books. You look at the classic movies and I'm talking about the Hays Code, because that came in 1932, 33. That created all kinds of mess. But pre-Hays Code, look at Betty Boop. And she was a sex pot. Afterwards, that was then. Then who knows what you could do? They turned her into a housewife without a husband. Basically,
Yep.
she became a secretary. She wasn't a sex pot anymore. She wasn't a flapper. She was, a Tilly the Toiler or whatever. But anyway, if you look at the kinds of movies and the entertainment, it was a lot rougher. Everybody's life was rougher. So you accepted more in your entertainment. And once it got post, World War II, things got, a bit more, I want to be safe. And that's where everything went. I mean, if you look at, Donna Reed? Donna Reed as an actress on TV is one thing. Donna Reed as an actress in the movies, she played hookers. She played all kinds of tough broads, and the whole image of what was acceptable back then, it just changed. And today, everything has to be marketed to pablum. It has to be in bite-sized chunks because, oh my God, we really have to worry about some church group coming after us because they don't have the ability to not buy the book themselves.
For the kids.
I mean, I remember as a kid, this is that 1955, 56. I was in church. I mean, my parents took us to mass, and I remember. And I was like 7 years old. I just discovered comic books, and the priest had the whole parish get up and everybody take the pledge for the Legion of Decency, where you would not do, you will not let any of this stuff come through and do this and that. And I'd say, Mom, comic books are okay. And she said, well, this is, someone's anyway. But that's how bad it was that they had to stop people. They couldn't allow people to have the choice. They had to stop them from having the choice, and that's what you have today.
Yeah, big time. Yeah.
I mean, what's funny is that it's like Glenn, you were mentioning the whole thing about like movies being all gore fests now, and it's like what's really funny is that for me, the two scariest movies that to this day is like I still consider them the scariest movies is Rosemary's Baby and Cape Fear. the one with Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
And those movies don't show anything. You know,
I'll tell you.
and you know, and people think that unless you're seeing like every little sinew and detail, you know,
there's no
leaking
subtlety
out of a person, that it's not horror.
I'm sure you've seen this film, and I'm not talking about the remake, which I refuse to watch, but the original film, The Haunting.
Okay.
Have you seen that?
No.
That is scary.
I think we might. I think we might have seen the remake.
Right. Well, watch forget that. Is it Catherine Zeta-Jones? Forget that one.
That one, yes. We did.
No. I've not seen it, but she's in it, and that's enough.
Yeah,
that was like a Disney ride.
Watch the original from 1963 with Julie Harris in it, and it's the scariest thing. There's a bit in it there. I'm not going to tell you what it is or give you any lead into it. There's a piece in there that is absolute fear, and I can't swear. I could, but I won't.
You can if you want. We're PG MADLSVs.
Okay, I will. It's what the fuck was that? Right, and it's the best. It's the best suspense film ever, in my opinion. And that's what's missing now. The subtlety of the you know, just you don't know what.
I think it's worse than subtlety, Glenn. I think it's a lack of ability to be subtle. It's spoon feeding. Okay, and making things so obvious that there's no interaction. That's what was great. Always have been great about comics is there are gutters between each panel, and even though I've heard the expression of it being like a strobe light on a video. Okay, it isn't quite that like that. It's not just about the art; it's about what's going on in between the panel. So it's this wonderful combination of literary and visual storytelling that makes you both interactive and at the same time passive, which is not something that you can do with film. You are just passive with film.
Yeah, that's true.
And of course you're deeply engrossed and engaged with literature, but comics are just they are unique. Not so unique, that's crap grammar. They are unique. Okay, they are a unique art form. They are the best way of storytelling in my mind because it does engage you so much, but at the same time makes your visual. It's actually a visual interpretation. You're taking it in visually, and I think at the moment there's so much spoon feeding and an inability to be original and kind of. There is still great stuff out there. It's not like it's everywhere, but it's just a general malaise, and you see it everywhere, right the way through from Hollywood through to making comics.
There's a difference between realism, being realistic, and believability.
Yeah, no,
and that's
I saw
where
you
we
post
had this
that, and I love that.
conversation.
Yeah,
I love that. We had a little bit back and forth. Believability is everything. Realistic makes you sometimes want to look away. Why are you doing that? Believable horror is one thing. Realistic horror is wanton, I think. And so therefore, what we have is a society that doesn't understand, Russ, as you were saying, they don't understand the difference between the two.
I agree.
And that comes from being literal in all interpretation. Fairy tales are not to be taken literally. The Bible is not to be taken literally, And so all of these elements, they keep the brain from being able to develop that muscle, being able to make a decision and to be able to actually understand cause and effect. What does this really mean? All of this is there. So anyway, okay.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what we were talking about earlier. It's just an every level of the entertainment cycle. So we're talking about horror and about film and about, but we were talking about muscle anatomy on Conan. Okay, and it didn't need to be a bodybuilder. And it didn't need to be ultra realistic. It needed to be believable. Yeah. And that was the great thing about those comics is that everything was in a solid world. You believed. It didn't matter that it was totally crazy. You believed it.
Yeah,
Jake
They
says
did
in
that.
every visual medium you play to the attentive strengths of them. Movies, comics, and video games have their own properties to make them engaging.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like
Sorry, Glenn, I stepped on you there for a second.
You know, to give an example using Conan, it's like if I was one of these people who everything needed to be ultra realistic in order to enjoy something, I couldn't enjoy Barry Windsor Smith's Conan because dude could draw everything but horses. And it would drive me crazy every time I would see him draw a horse. And I'm like, wait, dude, you have reference photos for everything else but this? But I would continue reading.
Now I'm going to have to go back and look at Barry Windsor Smith's work
it's
drawing
like,
horses.
Yeah, it was so funny. And it's like, it's like if had I allowed that to kind of like overwhelm my senses, I would have missed out. But it's like instead it turned into like a funny anecdote, and then I just continued moving on, reading the rest of the Conan books.
There's no doubt you have to filter this as well.
Exactly.
You have to have a filter. You can't.
Yeah, exactly.
See, we
too harsh.
We could all getting back to the believability thing. Is that I've noticed? I don't buy too many comics these days, but I've noticed that there's been a swing towards, say, do you remember when Peter Parker was Spider-Man? Remember that? Mm-hmm. And we cared more about Peter Parker than we did about Spider-Man.
Yeah.
We knew we weren't going to be swinging from a web from tall buildings, but we all went to school and we all got bullied and we all got all that real stuff was going on. But now I've noticed that if
he was probably a neighbor.
Right? Yeah.
I live in Queens,
in Brooklyn. So if I've noticed now, and tell me if I'm wrong, the last time I looked, if I put the Spider-Man costume on, I'm Spider-Man. When I used to read Spider-Man, the books were about Peter Parker, who happened to be Spider-Man.
Yep.
Right. But now they're about whoever's got the costume on.
Yeah.
Well, it was. That's what attracted to me to Spider-Man right from the get-go. Even Amazing comic was Amazing Adult Fantasy. Number 15.
Yeah.
The idea of this high school kid who was a nerd and he has this little power. Now that's the same dynamic that you have of Captain Marvel, except it's a different thing. You still have a kid who has this ability and he's smart and he's all this different, but he can't. Nobody likes him. So the attraction was that it was Peter having to circumnavigate his way through society, which all teenagers have to do.
Yeah,
right. And he was in high school at the time, so I was just getting close to that. I think it was the first one, the first Adventures, the original series started about 1962. No, 1962, 62. I'm just getting into high school at that time, maybe a freshman, and that's what I related to.
That talks directly to what we're talking about, and that realism versus believability. It is not realistic to be bitten by a radioactive spider.
No.
Okay, but it's believable. But Peter Parker is a believable character.
Yes.
Now, the whole concept of the world outside your window is being completely misunderstood, in my view, by current writers. It's not that it's the actual world outside your window.
Yeah.
Okay. It's that these characters would be able to exist in that world.
Right.
Yes.
And so it makes them believable. It doesn't make them realistic. It makes them believable. It means you can connect with them.
It's the same thing with the Batman. What's the as I read the Batman, the most underlying thing in the original concept was the fact what happened to him when he was 10 years old with his mum and dad.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. That's the core.
And that's the essence. Yeah, that's the essence of it. That kid is just, well, he blamed himself, doesn't he? Yeah. So because he was he ill, he wanted to go home or something. So that's the believable part, because we've all been ill and we've all done things and we've all regret things, but we're not all Batman. Well, none of us are Batman. You see what I mean? And I think that's the subtlety and the believability, like you're saying, that's lost these days.
Right.
Yep. And I said this to Randy last week. People have long they seem to have lost the knowledge of the difference between an idea and a plot.
Yeah.
Brian, I'd have you in this week, but I didn't want to bother you 2 weeks in a row. Brian K. Morris says modern audiences don't want true originality for the most part. They want the same thing, only different and better.
Yeah, no, it was kind of.
I think that's programming, though.
Yeah,
I mean, it was the argument that I was hearing after the final episode of the season finale of The Mandalorian. People were literally arguing how The Mandalorian needs to be more original. And I'm like going, did you have a stroke? It's a Star Wars IP. It's like, if you're that concerned about originality, go support creators who are actually doing original IP outside of a corporate setting.
Yes.
Don't look at Star Wars and then bitch how it's not original enough.
But I don't quite get that, because I thought that was Mandalorian, out of all the things I've seen in the last 7 or 8 years, which I thought were mostly rubbish. Okay, that was Star Wars.
Right, exactly.
It felt like Star Wars.
Oh, they're just doing fan service. It's like, it's Star Wars. That's exactly what I want.
It really brought back what the Jedi was supposed to be all about, especially when
it's like
the Mandalorian has such a hard time defeating one dark dark trooper, and here Luke comes through and just mops through them like they're nothing.
Spoiler warning if you haven't seen it like 3 months ago.
I figured that everybody's seen it that wants to see it by now anyway.
You know, so it's like,
if people want to see the originality from Star Wars, go and pick up New Gods.
Right, you know,
Go read Dune.
But that's the thing. It's like they say that they want original, but they still want it to be couched in the familiar. It's like everybody who asks me about Tall Tales, is it historically accurate? And I go, this shit has talking animals in it. Why are you asking me this question?
go back and look at Flash Gordon. You know, you want to see Star Wars.
You know, I mean, it's like,
look at Buck Rogers.
What the obsession is with that. It's like the people who get overly impressed with artists who can do, like, they can copy photographs. It's like, oh, look at this ultra realistic painting that somebody did that looks exactly like the photograph that they reference. It's like, okay, congrats for being able to render that way, but what does that mean really?
Where's the story?
Some of that is maturity as well.
Yeah.
Some of it is maturity. Because I was like, when I was younger, I was not keen on certain art. It's like, oh, that's crap.
Yeah.
But it's not about that. It's about, I mean, okay, some people are just grifting.
Right.
And you look at it and you can say objectively, that's crap. All right, get out. Okay. But so many artists aren't grifting. They're just expressing themselves, and it requires a conversation, and it's about how it's all about the subtlety.
There you go.
Brian K. Smith says, Brian Morris says, Barry Windsor Smith's horses didn't bother me because I couldn't draw horses back then either.
So there you go.
So I was besotted with like, that high def kind of airbrush art when I was in college. I used to love it. But I've now come to the point where I absolutely realize that it's very clever. I'm impressed. And people who can paint and it looks like a photograph is incredibly impressive. But I tell you what, that ain't going to tell no story. And that's the area of art I'm in. Okay. I'm not saying that bit isn't any good. I'm just saying it's not appropriate for where I am. What I need to do, what I need to learn is to stop, again, OCD, to get rid of the whole sort of, it needs to be perfect. No, it needs to be alive. And it needs
happy accidents. Allow happy accidents to occur. Many times when you're animating with traditionally as an animator, you do a pose and you go, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, this is, I didn't mean it to be that way. Or I need to push it a little, I needed to push it even further. Or I could use this pose someplace else or what have you. But allow the thing to happen. And don't, and okay, it's how many times do you hear, well, that was an ad lib on, in a movie and we kept it in. So I mean, all of that is there, and that's what happens. Your hand is ad libbing on the page.
That's what I was saying earlier about the mistake being the best part often.
Yes.
However, I would stress that doesn't mean that you forget the basics.
Well, that's a whole other conversation.
I'm not telling any of you guys to suck eggs. I know exactly. You know exactly what you're talking about. I'm talking about for anybody out there who's listening. Okay, don't just go straight to the style. because a lot of kids do
That's
that.
a mistake a
not
lot of
do
people
it.
make. Yeah.
And if you are going to do it, at least, at the very least, go find out about anatomy, about scene creation.
Draw from life.
Draw from life. Go out and draw things that you see.
Yeah.
And it's okay to go and get photographic reference and draw from them as well. And it's okay to literally copy other comic book artists to get your eye in. All right, but be yourself and draw from life.
Yeah,
but also learn acting. Learn storytelling, and get a full length mirror and just pose. Yeah. All you've got to do is pose.
Yeah, no, for real. Yeah.
All of that. I mean, I'll tell you this one. I didn't use any reference in Rock and Rule for Cindy or for Mylar or for Quad Hole. I just stood in front of the mirror and said, "Okay, basically, what are we talking about?" And then I was still young back then.
Now I'm gonna watch that scene with Cindy coming down.
Oh yes,
I'm trying to imagine you.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. There's no reference whatsoever other than myself.
Oh my goodness!
Nice, right, nice.
And no reference at all. The timing is all. The posing is all mine. There's nothing. All I had to work was with the voice on both of them. And I would learn that with Quad Hole. I would think like hey, and then Cindy would be like all kinds of stuff. But you get that feeling. But the best thing I would ever is if a young artist asked me, a comic book artist or animator, I just say, learn what it is that motivates the interior of that character and then express it visually. And that's why silent films, for all their whatnot, even the early in the 1930s, the early 30s, because they were still breaking away from that. There is still a lot of dynamics in the visualization of the character and in their acting. And, study those things. I know it's in black and white, but that's what you're drawing. You could draw with black and white. If you're going to do a comic book, you're first going to do a line art. So learn what the dynamics of the acting is, and then actually do it.
On that note, John, remind people who you are and how they can find you.
Okay, I'm John Celestri. I did a lot of stuff back from 19. I did a lot of stuff. Right now, I'm working. I'm launching my my mature a series, Bloodwing Angel Chronicles, and that'll be kickstarting in March 1st. And so take a look at. You can sign up, for preview pages, but you can also see me on YouTube as John Celestri, and Facebook and Twitter. And I've got a lot of videos on YouTube for instructional purposes, for animation and for drawing.
Awesome. Glenn, tell folks how they can find you.
Yeah, I'm a writer and artist, and you can find me on Amazon. I've got lots of books on there. Just put my name in, you'll find them. And the best way to get in touch with me is on Comics Unlimited Magazine at gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter. So just the usual places. But the best place is, as I say, Comics Unlimited Magazine at gmail.com. Or if you go to Amazon and put my name in, you'll find stuff there.
That's Glenn B. Fleming. Glenn with 2 N's, Fleming with 1 M.
And 1 M, yeah.
Yes. Russ, tell folks how they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube as Comic Book Black Belt. You can see on my channel there videos about my process, about how this book came together that I'll talk about in a sec, and my general processes for artistic work and my comic book work. You can also find me at russleach.com, comicbookblackbelt.com. Both of these places have all my links to social media. You can find me on the Facebook and the Twitter and stuff like that. And you can also find me at onlydeathcansavus.com. That's the website for this book. If you like comics the way comics used to be, it's here, it's back, it's ready, and it's It's available in demand, so you can still pick up a copy. And if you like fridge magnets and stickers, there are 9 left. There's a special perk on the page. You can find it there. It doesn't cost any difference, but it's the last set of fridge magnets I've got. So that's there. But like I say, it's still in demand. And you can find that at onlydeathcansavus.com, where the link to the Indiegogo campaign is still live.
And like they say in the commercials, once they're gone, they're
gone.
They're gone. Yeah, never to return.
Daphne, tell folks how they can find you.
Well, you can find me at my main portfolio site, egoworks.com, EGOWORKS, where you can read the first 5 issues of my fantasy drama, Ego Raven, Heir of the First Unicorn, for free. And if you prefer your fantasy to be more running, jumping, skipping, climbing Mount Doom, you can check out the links there to head over to talltalesonline.com, TAILS, where you can read the first 20 issues of Tall Tales for free, which we are going to kickstart the first volume from the beginning also in March. So March is going to be crowded for all of us.
It's going to be a big month. Yep.
Yeah. So so you can check out all my social media also and my other gallery sites, including the infamous House of Bob at egoworks.com.
Great. And Arrow Comics 4.0 also comes back in March with our Indie Revolt anthology book. It's going to be 120 pages in black and white. That's going to be a flip book. We're going in 60 pages on one side, 60 pages on the other side with great covers, one of which is by Daphne Lage here, and one of them is by Russ Leach.
We're tag teaming.
Absolutely. I don't think you're on the same. Yes, you are. In fact, probably on the same actual book. And the other covers are by Chris Skelf, the great Chris Skelf, and a 4th cover that you're going to have to come up to the campaign to actually take a look at that we're especially proud of. Very, very colorful and amazing. I've been your host, Randy Zimmerman. You can find me on Facebook under Randy Zimmerman. You can find me on Twitter under Randy Zimm. We do have an Arrow Comics 4.0 page up on Facebook where we're going to be making all of our announcements for products. We have a lot of products already underway and in the pipeline, ready to bring you as Arrow Comics. I can't wait for you to see them. The last half of this year is going to be a real big time for Arrow Comics 4.0. You can also find myself and Varian Grant, who runs the Indie Volt Radio Network, the indievolt.com site. We'll be back on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Livewire program. Maybe Daphne will join us too. I have no idea who else will be with us there. Then Thursday mornings, we do the Breakfast Buzz as well, Varian, myself, and usually Daphne, where we talk to other people and talk about the business as well there. That's the Breakfast Buzz Thursday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then again, we will be back Sunday morning at 9 a.m. with another group of guests, maybe the same guys you see here, maybe not. We'll see. Whoever we can get to wake up early enough or get off, get away from their desk long enough to talk to us at this time on Sunday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So set your clock. Varian's in the back room, but I don't know if he's got numbers or not. For our final numbers for our radio audience, just let me tell you, we deeply appreciate you listening. Well, however you listen to us, if you're over on YouTube, please like and subscribe over there. Indie Volt is gaining ground every week with more and more viewers and subscribers. We are desperately looking to break that 1,000 mark so that we really have to worry about our content. And we can also take on super chats to help afford our streaming services and our overhead. Also, if you get a chance, check out Liberty Distribution. If you're a retailer, you definitely want to sign up for that. We can't express that enough. There's a lot of big things coming from Liberty here again towards the end of the year that you do want to be a part of. So if you're a retailer, definitely jump over there. That's LEDG, I believe, .us. If I got that wrong, I hope Varian jumps in here and corrects me. But we also have one bit of business that we absolutely have got to cover before we leave, and that's a quick advertisement for the upcoming award show that Indie Volt is putting on here in September with the help of a lot of national sponsors, especially Dave & Buster's, where we are doing an award show to point out the quality and the high level of entertainment that that alternative, also adult, and independent comics have. Here's that commercial for that. again, you can get more information on that at indievoltawards.com. So check that out. We are really proud to be associated with that, and Dave and Buster's and the other list of national sponsors. We're getting more sponsors on board all the time. And this is an award show, folks, that's going to be judged. It's not going to be a popularity contest, except for one fan choice award where people can vote for their favorite book you haven't discovered yet. The whole purpose of this is to raise the level and to point out the quality and the entertainment value that independent and alternative comics have. And it's something that Dave and Buster's has really been behind with, and we can't thank them enough. We're looking forward to that. I believe it's September 18th. And we'll be broadcasting that live here on the net. We're really looking forward to it.
I'm coming just for that funky music.
Hey, cool. Yeah. So let us know. We'll set you up. Hopefully travels will be acceptable by then. So.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Oh, anyway, don't get me, especially here in Michigan. So that's a whole other, that's a can of worm. The Indiana Board of or Chamber of Commerce has a big billboard just as you break into Indiana, thanking Michigan's governor for the boost in Indiana's economy.
Wow.
Because of all the restrictions. I am not lying. But that's, anyway, that's political, whole nother thing. Don't need to get into that. We do want to thank you all and everybody for listening. Thanks so much, everybody, for being on the panel today. Deeply appreciate you all. We want to say hello to Varian. I don't think I've forgotten anything. Varian, did I forget anything? You can pop in here at any second and tell us no, going. All right. Any last words, anyone? We're going to go out the same way we came in with our opening.
Just buy more indie comics.
Yeah, buy more indie comics. Oh, hey, and speaking of that, and before we go, if you get a chance, take an afternoon, even though you have to wear that mask, and go to your local retailer, go through their stock, take a look at the great comics that are there, dust off their boxes if you have to, and take a few hours and go through their stock. They would really appreciate the business. Yeah. And if you're looking for good and expensive comics, you can check out the end run stores anymore, because Marvel and DC, a lot of these companies have emptied their warehouses. And one thing I discovered just recently is if you stop at a book warehouse, and I believe they have a bookwarehouse.com, Titan Comics has done a major dump of their leftover hardback books, some of which are amazing and really great works. That's Light and Darkness War. This is 13 Coins with Simon Bisley, and my personal favorite. And I just ran across this the other day, a collection of Captain Easy by the great Carlos Esquera.
That's Esquera. What a guy.
That's his first initial work. How he got it, you can literally see the evolution of his style inside of this strip. This is a guy that went on to do Judge Dredd and Strontium Dog, two of my favorite comics of all time. So and the kicker on that, Book Warehouse, all three of them books was $20.
Wow.
For the three of them. Amazing. And I'm sure they offer those deals, not to we're not getting paid to say this, but if you look around at bookwarehouse.com, you can probably pick those up. And I highly recommend it. Titan Comics, very high class publisher, very, very overlooked by a lot of retailers. Not every retailer, you can still find their stuff in a lot of the comic shops, but you're really missing out if you haven't seen that list. Varian, you're coming in. Any last words?
I would like to remind, I popped in at the last minute.
That's fine.
Remind anybody who's drawing, pop on over, and any artist to get their supplies from Dick Blick. As a matter of fact, you can go to the Indie Vote page. There's a link there. You should follow that link. Yeah, you should follow that link.
Nice. Okay. Because I'm always buying from there, so now I know.
Yeah, Dick Blick is the artist friend. It's where you should get all your art supplies. There is no other store but Dick Blick. Thank you. That is all.
I agree.
And that is, we are happily sponsored by Dick Blick. So.
Nice.
That's right. There's no other art store. I don't know any other art store that exists.
So go over there through the indievolt.com link. Get it
at the bottom of the page. Can't miss it.
At the bottom of the page. Get a discount.
Mm-hmm.
Go over there. They'd be happy to know you came from us. So.
Mm-hmm. I'd be happy too.
Have you got any figures, Varian?
The numbers were well, they've been weird, but they jumped up. The last one they reported was 22 minutes ago at 72,100.
Very
Good
nice.
Lord.
There you go.
Very
Good
nice.
Lord.
We do
Wow.
appreciate each and every one of you. Make sure your friends know that we're here, and you never know
Yeah.
when we're going to pop in on Indie Volt Radio. So
Who's the
sometimes this
number
stuff
one
gets
country?
rerun this way.
Say again?
What's
the
our
number
big
one
country?
Mexico.
Mexico. Interesting.
We love you. We love you in
Thank
Mexico.
you,
We
thank you,
appreciate
Ted
each
Cruz,
and
for
every one of you.
listening to us.
Yes.
There you go. Oh, he's back in Texas now with his head bowed. He had to try to bring the sunshine back up
Yeah.
north. That's it. He had to go negotiate. So, hey, everybody, you've been listening to the Sunday Funnies for the 21st of February, 2021. We deeply appreciate everybody listening. We hope you had a good time. We know we did. So, and thanks again, everybody, for chiming in. We're going out the same way we came in with our opening, and we wish you all the best of health and good luck. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Ciao.
And we
Ciao.
shall see you soon.
See
Take
ya.
care, everyone.
Yay! Think about what you've accomplished.
Daphne, do we have something we want to add to this?
Do you draw the Flintstones naked?